something's moving.
Yeah, it does.
Something's moving, and I'm not quite sure what it is, but yeah, I think that's possible. It said.
Life doesn't announce when it's about to change everything. There is no warning sound, no final countdown. One day you're standing on familiar ground, and the next, the floor disappears beneath you. It's never the pain you prepare for that breaks you. It's the shock, the sudden turn, the moment you realize the life you imagined no longer exists. For many people, that moment arrives quietly. For others, it arrives under the harsh glare of global attention. When Meghan Markle stepped into the royal world, the story sold to the public was simple: a fairy tale. A modern woman marrying into history. What followed was something far more complex, far more brutal, and far more revealing about human resilience. Overnight, her life became public property. Every word, every expression, every silence was analyzed, twisted, and judged. What should have been a celebration slowly became a psychological battlefield. Stoic philosophy teaches a hard truth early on. You do not control events, you only control your response. And that sounds comforting until life truly tests it. Because when pressure comes from all sides, when criticism feels endless, and when your identity is questioned daily, controlling your response becomes the hardest task imaginable. That's when most people break. Not because they are weak, but because the weight becomes unbearable. There comes a moment in every storm when you think, I can't take any more. You believe you've reached the edge of your strength, but life doesn't stop there. It pushes again. And that moment, the one right after you think you're finished, is where character is exposed. This is what the Stoics understood deeply. Strength is not proven when life is calm. It is revealed when life refuses to be. Marcus Aurelius once wrote that the mind must stand firm when the world shakes, not by denying pain, but by refusing to let pain define the self. Stoicism never promised happiness. It promised clarity. And clarity is often uncomfortable. It forces you to see reality as it is, stripped of illusion. Public rejection is a unique form of suffering. It doesn't allow privacy. It doesn't allow recovery. You are expected to smile while bleeding, to remain composed while your narrative is written by others. Meghan Markle didn't just face criticism. She faced a system where silence was expected and endurance was mistaken for obedience. The pressure was not only external, but internal. The quiet erosion of identity, the slow disappearance of self. Stoicism speaks directly to this kind of pain. It teaches that dignity is not granted by approval. It is maintained through self. When the outside world becomes hostile, the inner world must become disciplined, not cold, not emotionless, disciplined. Because emotion without direction becomes chaos. There is a dangerous myth that strength means never struggling. The truth is the opposite. Strength is built by staying present while struggling, by refusing to escape through bitterness, rage, or self-destruction. The Stoics never denied suffering. They trained for it. Every great transformation begins with a breaking point, a moment where continuing as before becomes impossible. For some, that breaking point leads to collapse. For others, it leads to clarity, a brutal understanding that something must change, even if the cost is high, especially if the cost is high. Another Stoic principle is simple but unforgiving. Never surrender your will. You may lose status, you may lose comfort, you may even lose people, but the moment you surrender your inner authority, everything else follows. History is filled with individuals who endured unbearable pressure, simply because they refused to abandon themselves. Rejection has a way of sharpening the mind. When admiration disappears, when applause turns to silence, you are left alone with one question. Who are you without validation? This is not a question most people ever answer honestly. But those who do emerge different, quieter, stronger, less dependent on noise. Stoicism teaches that hardship is not an interruption of life. It is life's training ground. Every insult, every loss, every humiliation becomes material. Either it shapes you consciously or it shapes you unconsciously. There is no neutral ground. Growth never comes from comfort. It comes from friction, from resistance, from moments when the easiest option is to quit. The mind, like the body, only strengthens under load. Avoiding pain avoids development. Facing pain with awareness creates maturity. Personal responsibility is where real power begins. Not blaming systems, not blaming people, not waiting for rescue. The Stoics were ruthless about this. They believe that no matter how unfair circumstances are, responsibility remains personal. This is not cruelty. It is freedom, because the moment you accept responsibility, you reclaim control. No one comes to save you. That truth is terrifying and liberating. When you stop waiting for permission, for understanding, for approval, something shifts. Action replaces paralysis. Purpose replaces confusion. Another core Stoic idea is emotional mastery, not emotional suppression. Mastery. Emotions arrive automatically. Responses do not. The space between stimulus and response is where freedom lives. Most people never step into that space. They react. They explode. They retreat. They drown. Mastery means pausing, observing the emotion without obeying it, choosing conduct over impulse. This is not weakness. It is discipline. And discipline is power practiced quietly. Failure is inevitable. Stoicism reframes it not as defeat, but as instruction. Every collapse teaches something. If you are willing to listen, the problem is not failure. The problem is refusing to learn from it. Those who endure public failure experience a rare kind of education, one that strips illusions quickly. It teaches humility. It teaches patience. It teaches discernment. You learn who stays silent, who speaks, and who profits from noise. Consistency is the invisible force behind resilience, not dramatic acts, not speeches, daily decisions, small, repeated actions taken without applause. Stoics believed philosophy was useless unless lived, embodied, practiced when no one is watching. Pain always asks a question. Will you let this define you or refine you? There is no avoiding pain, only choosing what it becomes. Some turn pain into bitterness. Others turn it into boundaries, wisdom, strength. Accepting what you cannot control is not surrender. It is strategy. Fighting reality wastes energy. Accepting reality frees it. When you stop demanding that the world behave differently, you begin to behave differently yourself. The present moment is the only place power exists. Regret lives in the past. Anxiety lives in the future. Strength lives now. The Stoics understood this deeply. Do the next right thing. Nothing more, nothing less. You don't rebuild a life in a single decision. You rebuild it in moments, choices made while tired, while misunderstood, while doubted, and those choices accumulate. In the end, resilience is not loud. It doesn't announce itself. It shows up quietly, day after day, refusing to disappear. It keeps going when quitting would be understandable. It stands firm when standing is uncomfortable. The world may never fully understand your struggle. It doesn't need to. History is written not by approval, but by endurance. When the storm passes, what remains is not the noise, but the character forged within it. And that is the quiet victory Stoicism promises. Not a life without pain, but a self strong enough to carry it.